Hey, good morning, everyone. So this is a live stream about something a little bit different. I've come across a really strange syndrome or illness, whatever you want to call it, and I just wanted to explore it a bit and see what people think about that. Now, this syndrome is called Geschwind Syndrome. I've actually put it in the description if you want to know how it's spelled, but it's a neurological, I think that's how they call it, syndrome. So basically it causes a temporal lobe epilepsy. Okay, and from what I know, because I've read a little bit about it, is it's not like an epilepsy like where you are basically unable to move, right? It's more that something happens in your head that makes you become more, for example, you have visions that you write down, and it's called hypergraphia. We're going to all these in a minute. Religiosity, I don't know, so hyper religious, intensified mental life, and so on. Now, I just heard about that, and I just wanted to explore it. Now, I'm not saying that people who have a relationship with God are suffering from this. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But it is true that there's many so-called false prophets out there, yeah, who are seeing things and reporting things, totally convinced of it, but obviously they're not true. And we see that again and again when they don't come to pass, right? Now, so we have to make a distinction between the two, between having been forgiven by God, for example, and our own personal relationship with God. And then this extreme behavior of, and then that's not just for so-called Christian prophets, that's just any cult leader or, who are convinced of what they're experiencing, that this is really from God, basically, or from whoever they look up to. I don't know, may not always be God, right, to them. So, but they're totally convinced. Now, for example, we have prophets like in Jehovah's Witnesses, right? There was a woman there who, I think it's Jehovah's Witnesses, who, or is it something else? I can't remember. Anyway, she is basically, no, it's not Jehovah's Witnesses. It's 7 Days Adventist. And yeah, so she wrote a lot of books, and about the end times coming, I think, and all that. Now, obviously, that's never happened, and it will never happen because the end times already happened, the end of that age. But even if you don't believe that, it is true that these prophecies that this woman wrote, who calls herself a prophet in the 7 Days Adventist Church, that they never came to pass. So yet she wrote books about that. And that's what I'm talking about, about this. There's a switch in people. Something happens and they write these long, either books or articles or visions, of something they're really convinced of, that something bad is going to happen. Well, obviously we know that, when you're brought up in religion, or when you are pulled into religion, or when you are deceived by religion, then you believe what you're being told, right? That the end times is in the future, and that people, we're going to have to prepare, we have to live in fear. That is really, really, how do you call it? Not strong, I don't know the English word for it. Powerful. Okay, that's really powerful to someone's mind, especially when you've been hearing that from a young age. So you just, basically, I would assume that you get these visions or these fears. They're fears, right? You're fearful, and that's what you think about and what you dream about, I guess. But this Geschwind syndrome, I think, is a little bit different from what I read so far. And yeah, now I'm not saying that any false prophets are actually suffering from this, but I just want to put it out there and people can make up their own minds. So let me share the screen and we have a look at it together. Okay. So that's what it's spelled. And Geschwind is a German. I mean, Geschwind is a German word, but I'm not sure what it means really in linking to the illness. Or anyway, Geschwind syndrome, also known as Gestalt-Geschwind syndrome, is a group of behavioral phenomena evident in some people with temporal lobe epilepsy. It is named for one of the first individuals to categorize the symptoms, Norman Geschwind, who published prolifically on the topic from 1973 to 1984. There is controversy surrounding whether it is a true neuropsychiatric disorder, meaning it's a mental disorder also referred to as a mental illness, a mental health condition, or a psychiatric disability. Is a behavioral or mental pattern that causes significant distress or impairment of personal functioning. Mental disorder is also categorized by a clinically significant disturbance. So it's a mental disorder, basically. But it's a true mental disorder. Temporal lobe epilepsy causes mild chronic changes in personality, which are interictal, occurring between seizures, and slowly intensify over time. Geschwind syndrome includes 5 primary changes: hypergraphia, hyperreligiosity, atypical, usually reduced sexuality, circumstantiality, and intensified mental life. Now, so we're going to go into each one in a minute. Now, I just thought that was really interesting when it says it intensifies over time. Because for those of you who have been watching some videos on my channel, you know that I talk about this so-called prophet from the Master's Voice. And the way she started off, when you watch the first few videos of hers, they're very different. And she looks very different as well, very different to how she is now. Now, back then, she looked much happier and not so intense, and now she looks really tired and intense, and like she can't stop thinking about it. And the visions that she has and the things that she has to write down, and she says it herself. She says that even when she walks home from work, God says to her, tell them this, tell them that. And so she's tired, and obviously this is not prophecy. Everyone with a half a brain cell knows that's not a prophecy. That's not God saying to you, keep repeating to you, tell him, and you do tell him, and then he continues to tell you to keep telling them. This is not of God, okay? You don't need to be a genius to know that. Yet she does have those things that are happening to her. It's really, really sad to watch and worrying, okay? It's one thing about deceiving people, but obviously she believes what she says, and there's many people supporting her because they want to hear that sort of thing. So she feels encouraged continuing. But her visions or her behavior actually got more and more extreme, I believe. And to the point where she actually says to people that you can't even trust your neighbor. You can't even trust your own family members. So there's a sense of oh God, I can't remember the words now. I need another coffee. Suspicion, mistrust. And I found that really striking. That's getting worse and worse. And that's why I've always said, she's not well. Now I'm just concentrating on that one person, but I think it's a good example of what happens to quite a few people who call themselves prophets. But anyway, again, like I said in the beginning, this is not to take away from people and their own personal relationship with God, okay? I'm not saying that this isn't possible, this doesn't happen, because I myself have had this happen to me. So I'm not saying anything about that. I'm talking about the extreme end of basically people who, like cult leaders, for example. There's been plenty of cult leaders where, for example, they get people together, they have a vision, they really believe in it. And to the point where they tell people to unalive themselves, yeah. And they do it, I mean, we look back in history, it's happened. So that's what I'm talking about. This is totally different to our own personal relationship with God. Anyway, so without further ado, let's have a look at this and see what it's all about. Okay, so we know where it's coming from this guy called Geschwind. So what are the features? Hypergraphia. Now, I thought that was really interesting. So it's a tendency for extensive and compulsive writing or drawing. It has been observed in persons with temporal lobe epilepsy who have experienced multiple seizures. Those with, am I saying this in an American accent, by the way? Seizures. I don't know. Seizures. Those with hypergraphia display extreme attention to detail in their writing. Again, go back to the people. This is about people who, for example, this Master's Voice prophecy blog, Esther. She goes into great detail in her dreams, and she not only in her dreams, but also when she repeats the dreams. Details that are so nonsensical, and also not, if she really was a prophet, so unnecessary. About the color of the sky and how the aliens looked, and it's just absolute nonsense, but there's a lot of it, and it just keeps coming every day and every night, so it seems, for years. And it's been getting worse. So that's the thing I'm talking about. Yeah, that's very different to our personal relationship with our Creator. There's a sense of urgency behind that behavior. sort of tiring, exhausting behavior. Those with hypergraphia display extreme attention to detail in their writings. Some such patients keep diaries recording meticulous details about their everyday lives. In certain cases, these writings demonstrate extreme interest in religious topics. So, extreme interest. These individuals also tend to have poor penmanship. Okay, I'm not sure what that actually means. Maybe that means they're not very good writers. I don't know. Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky, known to have epilepsy, showed signs of Geschwind Syndrome, including hypergraphia. In some cases, hypergraphia can manifest with compulsive drawing. Drawings by patients with hypergraphia exhibit repetition and a high level of detail, sometimes morphing writing with drawing. And exhibit repetition and a high level of detail. And that's exactly what was so striking. And I was listening to this particular person because again and again she would say repeat herself, about these things. Repeat. I mean, she would say to people, America doesn't repent, you're so wicked, God is so angry with you. Yet she has literally, I think, hundreds of thousands of followers who are agreeing with her in the comment sections of her videos. So, and yet she's still going on about this because that is what she hears, that is what she thinks God is telling her. And aliens will come, and then the Muslims will take over, and then the Russians will take over, and then aliens will take over. I mean, people don't seem to step back and say, well, who will take over first then, It's a big mess. But people like it, those people here. I mean, she's got a lot of followers, and they're all interested in this. It's entertainment. It's really sad. But to me, when I watch her, she looks like she's going down. She's declining, or how do you call it? She's getting worse. Because that's just the fact that she has so-called prophesied things which haven't come to pass, So we know 100% that what she's seeing is not the truth. That we know. So I would like to say that, I wouldn't like to say, but rather than like the religious people say, oh, she has demons, I think there's something wrong. She needs help. But yeah, I think that's another live stream. So definitely tick on this one. Hyper-religiosity. Now, some individuals may exhibit hyper-religiosity, characterized by increased, usually intense religious feelings and philosophical interests. And again, we have to divide or differentiate between the two. Yeah, I guess it's how do you call it? On a continuum, whatever. That's to the extreme end of things. People can have debates about religious things. That's one side of it. But then there's this extreme, never-ending, repetitive visions while awake and while asleep. That's not normal, okay? That's beyond an interest of something. That is just obsession. And partial epilepsy patients experiencing frequent auras, perceived as numinous in character, exhibit greater ictal and interictal spirituality. I have no idea what that means. What does that mean? A post-ictal state is the altered state of consciousness after an epileptic seizure. It usually lasts between 5 and 30 minutes. Wow. But sometimes longer in case of larger or more severe seizures, and is characterized by drowsiness, confusion, nausea, hypertension, headache, or migraine. That's... So it's not really that noticeable, right? You wouldn't say, oh, I've got a headache. Oh, no, it's not really a headache. I've got a seizure. Like, you wouldn't know. Now, again, I'm not saying that these people are suffering from this. It's just something to look into. So, wait. These religious feelings can motivate beliefs within any religion, including voodoo, Christianity, Islam, and others, or Judaism. Yeah. Furthermore, in someone from a strong religious background, hyper-religiosity might appear as deeply felt atheism. There are reports of patients, so it's more like an obsession, it sounds like, with a way of life. There are reports of patients converting between religions. A few patients internalize their religious feelings. When asked if they are religious, they say they are not. One reviewer concluded that the evidence for a link between temporal lobe epilepsy and hyperreligiosity isn't terribly compelling. That means so. Now, people with Geschwind syndrome reported higher rates of atypical or altered sexuality, which means less, I think. In approximately half of affected individuals, hyposexuality is reported. Less commonly cases of hyposexuality is reported. Less commonly cases of hypersexuality. So it's less. So they go off sex, basically. Basically, I think that's what it means. Which could be, people thinking, oh, God doesn't want me to have babies or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I've heard that before. People think the end times are coming. They don't want to have babies and so on. It's all messy. So circumstantiality, individuals who demonstrate circumstantiality or viscosity tend to continue conversations for a long time and talk repetitively. Oh, wow. So again, we go back to this person from the master's voice. And for those of you who have come from her channel, you guys know that this woman can literally talk for 3 or 4 hours about the same subject, the end times. That's never going to happen. But they're not really about the end times, they're about her dreams, right? Her dreams, her visions, her fears. So and especially telling people that they're bad, evil, and that they need to repent again and again and again. So that's it's really striking. And she looks so drained as well, so drained and tired. And there we go, the intensified mental life. Because she does say, oh, I do this when I come back from work during the night, or I'm up late doing this, so she's really committed to writing all these things down, even on her blog. So she has lots of so-called prophecies on her blog that have never come to pass, or that are they're not prophecies, they're just things that you heard on the news that are actually going around already. Most of those things are things that we can already hear on the news, and we've been hearing on the news, and alternative news for a long time. But she repeats them like they're just come out of nowhere. We're living in this perfect world, and soon we're going to have a tsunami, or soon we're going to have an earthquake. It's never happened before, but it will happen. So it's ridiculous, but pages upon pages upon pages of that stuff. When she does go into more detail about prophecies, like with Trump and Kamala Harris and Biden, they obviously they failed big time. So nevertheless, she doesn't stop. They keep coming. These visions, this intensified mental life. And if someone listens to this and knows her personally, I actually feel really worried about her. I think they should keep a close eye on her, and I don't know, I just feel it's not going to end well. Anyway, so intensified mental life. Individuals may demonstrate an intensified mental life, including deepened cognitive and emotional responses. This tendency may pair with hypergraphia, leading to prolific creative output and a tendency toward intense solitary pursuits. Of course, we can say that this is like, artists, I'm sure a lot of artists feel like that. There's a fine line between disorder and creativity, I'm sure. But again, I'm talking about the extreme end of things. And we do have to look at it in that way as well, because there are plenty of cult leaders, what we call cult leaders, that have turned so extreme and really believed what they were saying and made other people believe it too. Yeah. We have to look at these things because there's obviously something not right. It's obviously not from God. Yeah, if you tell people to follow you because you've had these visions, the end times is going to come soon, to the point of where people are dying, we need to have a look at it from a different angle. We can't just say, oh yeah, he's a false prophet. Do you know what I mean? God says in the Bible, it's a false prophet because he prophesied and it doesn't come to pass. So yeah, just forget about him. No, I think don't forget about people like that, because they cause, first of all, they are in pain themselves, but they cause pain to others as well. So whether they actually suffer from this illness or syndrome, I don't know. Something is obviously going on. And yeah, I think the future will tell us more about this particular person. I don't think it's gonna be nice. So yeah, anyone listening to this who knows her, I hope that you will be able to reach out and just, I don't know. I don't even know what to do, because her friends are probably, she has people who she calls or who call her, and then they do these visions on the telephone together, and they're totally convinced of it as well. So yeah, living in a bubble, I guess, in an echo chamber. So anyway, guys, I hope you found this interesting, enlightening, and maybe thought-provoking as well, because religion and so-called Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever, Buddhism, it's not always about God, okay? I would actually say no religion is about God. It's about power, control, and a lot of mental illness as well. Now, people starting off, they may have had experience with God, but it's very, very quickly we can become drawn into religions. Like in the Bible it says Moses went to talk to God and the people couldn't wait, and they made themselves a golden calf. And I think things like that happen and can happen all the time and do happen all the time. But anyway, I'm just waffling on now. I shall see you next time, guys. And please like and share the video. Helps my channel. Until next time, God bless.